because, we talked about the pain and everything, but I was still losing white matter through this whole time period. And when I was able to get retested, it actually showed that I hadn't lost any more white matter from my previous test to that one, and that pretty much covered the period that I had stopped taking the pharmaceuticals. Whether it's related or not.
And how long had you been off pharmaceuticals?
Oh, I believe it was a year, maybe a bit longer.
And how long did you need to use that cannabis oil to get you through?
I actually used it for about 6 months.
That's very hard to get, and it's expensive.
Yeah, I was lucky that way too. I was able to.
But we won't ask you to tell us.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah.
Folks, we're coming up on another break. This is the Roll Up Radio Show. My name is Tylon, and you're listening to Julie Indica and Summer Alstein and our very special guest, Chris Barr. And we will come back right after this commercial break. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some information that a very good friend of mine sent over about what's happening in Illinois with a new bill that's going to be introduced that will dramatically decrease arrest of young black men. So when we come back from the radio, from this break, you're listening to the Roll Up. Roll out.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a great opportunity. If you have an event, product, service, talent, or something important to say now,
So here's an interesting little
you can
stat.
have your very own
The
radio
drug
show.
overdose death
Whether
rate
you're
has
just
more
starting
than
out or a veteran
doubled from
looking for a
1999 to
professional platform to enhance your
2013.
presentation and following.
In
The GoPro Radio
2013,
Network is the
81%
premier
of those
place to
deaths were
cultivate and share
unintentional.
new and exciting
Those are
content.
pharma drugs
We can
only.
help you grow your audience and keep it growing long after your first broadcast.
What's the scary
Now,
fact
you
about
have a
that?
voice.
Do you
Call
know what
212
pharma drug?
696
That's OxyContin.
or visit www.goproradio.com.
Do you know what pharma drug is
and you'll be
responsible for
amazed at
most
how
adverse
easy and
drug
affordable it is
reactions?
to have your very own
You'd be
professional radio
amazed.
show
What?
on the fastest growing network in the
Antibiotics.
galaxy. GoPro
More
Radio
adverse
Network.
drug
Oh, really?
reactions.
The voices
People
in
having to go to the hospital.
I remember when I was a little girl, a girl died from a penicillin shot in my class. Back when the doctors used to come to your house when you were sick.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network.
That was common back then,
In
Summer.
the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen. To the
They used to come and give you a shot of penicillin, which we know that doesn't work for colds and flus, but they did that. Yeah, she was allergic to it.
The Buzz Street Journal calls the roll-up radio
That's
show
crazy.
audacious.
What a
Cover
horrible way to
Demo
find
says
out.
It's irreverent. High People magazine calls it smart and funny.
I think she was like 6 or 7. It was I was young. I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, maybe 1st. I remember she was in my grade.
In Summer Allston. Only on the GoPro.
But I just watched a thing on PBS, their Frontline thing on antibiotics. That was pretty interesting.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
Yes, and we are back. You're listening to the Roll Up Radio Show with Jules Indica, Julie Indica, and Summer Alstein, and myself, Tylon Washington, with a very special guest, Chris Barr. And before we get back into Chris's very powerful and intriguing story, that I think it's really worth your time to really listen to really what he's saying and what he's talking about, because I know a lot of times we hear our friends talk about, the pharmaceutical companies, and then we hear in contrast what the marijuana community is saying, and I said this on the last show. Full disclosure, I don't use marijuana. I never did, but I'll tell you the stories that you're hearing in the streets, just with your friends at barbershops or when you're hanging out, whether at a club or social event, and I'm hearing all kinds of stories, and I just want to commend Chris for being so courageous, really, to share his very, very a deep, personal, and profound story about his experiences, so that people can just think and reconsider what they feel is true, and take it from someone who has actually experienced this, because that's who we really should talk to. I mean, I think it was Mark Twain who said there's liars, damn liars, and statistics, and you have a lot of folks roll out numbers and so forth, but these are real human beings with real human stories, and I'm not just hearing it from Chris. Chris is just one of those folks who are, like I said, courageous enough to share his story, but there's a lot of folks who have similar stories about how these pharmaceutical drugs cause more damage than what they're worth, and how marijuana is a better alternative. So I just want to thank him for doing that. But before we get back to the story, I just want to read this article about what's happening in Illinois, because when I went to the break, I wanted to let you guys know that I wanted to talk about this for just a quick minute, that there is some relief, if you want to call it that. I absolutely don't think the bill goes far enough, but there is something that's happening that perhaps some of the other states where there's a large population of black people should consider, and adults in Illinois would be able to use small amounts of recreational marijuana without fear of jail time under two bills introduced by the General Assembly, and this is reported by the Huffington Post. The bills are the first ever legislation in this state aimed at rolling back marijuana-related penalties. Just this Tuesday, actually the Tuesday before last, lawmakers in both state houses introduced bills that would decriminalize and legalize small amounts of recreational marijuana for people over 21. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Anybody?
I think that's great.
I think it's a great that they're going to do it. The chance that that's going to pass are probably very slim. We've been through this with Illinois before on their medical, which they finally got through, but through the state legislature. But I don't think it'll pass right away. I don't think they have enough Dems.
Summer, you want to chime in? You got your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that if it can get the support and it passes, then it would be a great feat for the people of Illinois, for sure.
Do you think the bill goes far enough, Chris? Or are you familiar with it?
Well, this is the first time hearing of it, but
okay.
I'll send you the link on it, Chris. It's a decent bill, and it basically decriminalizes possession for up to 30 grams, and actually allows up to 5 marijuana plants too.
Yeah, I was going to read that,
which is pretty ambitious.
Yeah, it says Senate Bill 753. It says Senate Bill 753.
So like anybody in Illinois should call the reps.
Yeah.
Yeah, call your state reps and tell them that you want this to pass.
Yep. Get involved.
Yeah.
I mean,
you could actually go to senate.gov and contact your representatives.
Well, definitely we want more. We want to see a lot more and perhaps better legislation. You know, I feel like on one hand I'm happy about it, but on the other hand it's like it's the government should just make sure we get our mail and make sure that the streets are paved, and instead of telling people what they can do with their own bodies, but
I would like to see patients have complete rights.
Yeah, and sometimes I kind of feel like it's a weird space for me where you say, okay, thank you, our great daddies for this wonderful for allowing us to do what we should be doing anyway, or because it's our freaking bodies. But laws are laws. I guess they're in place to do some things, but I think most of the laws are just money driven and very oppressive to people who are predominantly poor, people of color. And I just think that I guess we can take whatever we can get, and this is a step in the right direction. But I don't want us to get, I guess, relaxed and say, "Oh, okay, well,
We have to remind the people that we are the government,
right?
Not these politicians. We are the government."
Right. Absolutely.
Well, I think the politicians need to figure that out on that one. But yeah, as far as what Illinois is doing, it's very ambitious because it doesn't really have any regulation in it, really, not much. And there's no taxation, so the big money guys aren't going to let this pass, basically. If I would be happy to see it pass. I would love to see everybody, all the citizens. In fact, I have a couple of friends in Illinois, and I think guys should get out there and you should campaign for this. You should make them push it through. But the chance of that happening when the big money hears about it, they'll be campaigning against it because there's no taxes collected and there's just no regulation. So it's a tough battle, Tylon, and you accept this stuff because it's safe access and it's better than going to jail for a plan.
Absolutely,
I don't like it, but it's a bitter pill to swallow. But we accept it because of that, And as the bills go, this one is not that bad. What they're trying to do.
Do you know who's?
But the real thing we should do is end prohibition. That's what it's really about. End prohibition. We don't really need to make regulations. We just need to repeal prohibition.
Right.
That's what we need to do.
Right. All right. Well, let's get back into Chris's story because I know a lot of folks want to hear a lot more.
Okay. Well, by the point that I quit taking